Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and I have the pleasure of welcoming Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh to this special edition.
Namaskar.
Namaste. How are you, Dr. Sir?
Good, very good.
And while you are following the political movement in America with the recent Republic Convention, how do you see, has it energized voters enough?
Well, it's very difficult to say because it's a virtual convention. So there is no balloon popping, or there is no confetti, or there is no shouting or cheering or whatever. So it's hard to say. But I think a lot of citizens are following that convention. Both they followed last week Democrat convention as well as this week Republican convention. I think and there are good speakers there. I mean, Nikki Haley and there was one black attorney general from I think he was from the Tennessee or somewhere in the South. He spoke very well yesterday, and of course, the state secretary spoke yesterday from Israel, and that again created a little controversy. And of course, Mrs. Trump spoke, and I think she spoke very good. She made everything more humane, more humble, and more. It touched a lot of good. Feeling into the people, because she mentioned about Black Lives Matters. She also said that justice has to be done, but violence does not justify the justice. So and also she said about COVID-19. She also said about a lot of other things like unemployment and so forth. So her speech was kind of a little different than speech on day one, or even speeches on the previous speeches. So I think it's kind of balancing out.
Absolutely.
Now,
yeah.
what about
referring to Nikki Haley, sorry.
Ceremony showing the 5 immigrants taking oath. It's not illegal, but again, it's a advantage of taking location. So president is in White House, and he has all right to do that. So there's nothing, nowhere says in democracy or our constitution that president cannot have oath ceremony at White House, because, for example, people are getting the very large awards, like even Nobel Prize or even Padma Vibhushan or any other awards. And sometimes people cannot go to the award ceremony. They go to White House, or they go to, even in India, people like Farid Zakaria, when he got Padma Bhushan, he could not make to that ceremony because I was there as a Padma Shri. And then what happened is he went to later on he went to President's Palace by himself, and they did a ceremony there. So that's not that's legal, and that's so nobody can say that why you did this, why he didn't come to that event. So I mean, this is kind of controversy without much substance to it.
Absolutely. And now, focusing on a few references highlighted by Nikki Haley, she said president is not always politically correct. She also said America is not a racist country. And continuing with that, most of the speakers didn't get into the depth of Black Lives Matter movement as much as First Lady touched. How do you see America at this point of time as an immigrant yourself in terms of racial equation?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, racial discrimination is a kind of is a historical thing, and it's going on for 200 years, more or less. And so still there is a racial discrimination. Still the people with their different color is seen differently, and that should not be there. And each and every citizen should be equal, and they should not be judged by their color of the skin, or the way they speak, or the way they dress. So I think it should not be there, and that's why I think probably Mrs. Trump tried to dispel the notion that Republicans are supporting racism, but probably not. But I mean, there is always some black ships in all the party where there is some racism is there, and we know that there is always subtle racism. We already experience ourselves. I experienced myself. So that is you can't deny that, and we should try to remove it.
Absolutely. But will everything reach to the table of President Trump in terms of voters' decision? Meaning, would you or any voter consider him responsible for everything that is not happening right as far as race relations are concerned? In that context, people pay attention to his own personal preferences and the way he has conducted in this context. Going post Black Lives Matter movement, though it continues in some way now, is it going to reflect in him losing his share of votes?
Well, I mean, of course, he may lose some share of votes, particularly from the immigrants, some black Americans, and so forth. And there is no way about it. But how much, we don't know, because at the end of the day, in any election, people vote for their wallet and their economic situation rather than all of the things what we always give importance to.
Now, moving towards another important aspect which relates to economy, and President Trump always took credit for being a powerful force in generating employment and with a very healthy market situation. But due to COVID, all that has changed. How do you see, considering that his approval rating or the recent polls that we see are not going in favor of President Trump?
Well, I mean, yes, we know that because of the handling of the COVID situation, he's losing a lot of support from the American citizens. But as far as economy is concerned, I think still they are doing pretty well. Because, I mean, even in spite of all this, because they did a lot of money infusion, trillions of dollars into the economy, then also market is still going up. Everybody's asset is going up. Everybody's 401k is going up. Everybody's IRA money is going up. So we don't know how to measure the economic downfall. And of course, there's a temporary unemployment is high. But again, it is kind of double-edged sword here, because there are so many businesses are still not open. And those who are open, the people who are working at certain level, because they are giving so much benefit, so that incentivized people to go back to work. And because they make more money by staying home, rather than what if they go back to. So there has to be somehow should be balanced out in order to bring the unemployment down.
Absolutely. And there is another important area which relates to security and the way President Trump has approached his promise of building wall and going after the enemies and taking the credit for having if not completely neutralized, at least reduced the power of ISIS. In that context, do you see there is a clear-cut difference in terms of the approach of Democrat led by Biden and Republicans led by President Trump?
Yeah, there is always There is a question about Democrat and Republican. What Democrat, saying that whoever came here, whose children are here, should be given amnesty. Now, every 10 or 15 years, if you give amnesty to millions of people, then in the flip side of argument is that every country has to have border. Every country has to have some rules and regulation how people can come in. For example, you and me, we waited uh, so many years to come in. People, those who come on an illegal format, they should be sent back and then bring them back again. But you cannot give the incentive that okay, you come illegally, stay here 10 years, and you will get amnesty. That is wrong for country. Country has to be protected by rules and regulations.
Absolutely. In that context, I think President Trump has worked towards removing some of the baggage of rules which are redundant and coming up with the executive orders now and then. But overall, the way people perceive his leadership would become clear on 3rd November. In this context, I want to touch two more points, at least in today's session. One, the issue related to postal ballot. And President Trump has again and again showed his reluctance in allowing 80 million or so postal ballots to be cast. And there is some controversy going on in that context. How do you see his apprehension that this might result into unfair casting of votes?
Well, if post office is well equipped, post office is well managed, and post office has enough resources, then I think the mail voting can be done without any much irregularities.
Right.
So irregularities, but if what we see right now that post office has a problem in the budget, post office is removing certain old machine. So I think right now the way post office is going, I don't think that post office is probably ready for this. So mailing by ballot by mailing doesn't mean that it cannot be done. It can be done, provided you take the certain precautions.
So I think the way you see it, the way President is looking at it is slightly different, and that is the beauty of democracy. But moving to the last question for today's show, Dr. Sudhir, looking at the potential relationship which India will have with America under President Trump or President Biden, do you see some distinct difference in approach of these two parties, two leaders?
Yes, if you look at the historically, at least I can say for last 50 years, when I'm here since 70s, early 70s, I can see that Republican administration is always pro-India in its action. Whatever reason is, I'm sure it's a self-interest of the America. But they are always somehow their work is a pro-India. For example, U.S.-India nuclear deal, opening up in '92, opening up the market, Indian market to USA. That gives a lot of economic boost to the India, and so forth. And Democrats are also good, but again, historically, if you compare, then I think Republicans are more pro-India than Democrats. And but Democrats also has a good quality that they always stand by human rights, any racial discrimination or any minority discrimination back home. So it's all kind of to and fro, or it's all plus and minuses. So only time will tell. And how the President Biden behaves, or how the President Biden has, what kind of advisors they have. Same thing with Trump, what kind of advisor they have. Because at the end of the day, all the president acts according to their advice.
So I think that would be one of the factor which many Indian Americans would consider. But then again, it is a package of everything combined together. As we say goodbye from today's show, your parting words for our viewers, Dr. Sab.
Well, dear friends, I think it's a season for election now. In the democracy, this is the only power we have as a citizen to exercise our vote. And we must do that. Go out and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote, depending upon your choice. But you must vote and you must speak out. Otherwise, you will not get another chance in next 4 years. So we'll see you next week. God bless America. God bless India. Jai Hind. Goodbye.